Hopefully this video should be quite interesting to Gary because it kind of supports partially one of his claims about kinetic energy, but I'm not hiding it, am I? According to him, I hide any information that goes against what most people understand to be the kinetic energy formula. And I'm going to show you an example here where it doesn't appear to quite play out as expected. Well, not as I expected. Now that may be my fault. It's very probably my fault. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Just an airtrack experiment, bashing the 2 mass and the 1 mass into a spring, which I've done plenty of times before and always achieved about 50% extra compression. Yeah. But on this occasion, on the airtrack, I'm only achieving about 25% extra compression. And it's confusing. I don't know the reason. Now, when someone else gets a proper airtrack, and we know a certain person is planning on buying one, hopefully it would be nice if he could get a chance to do this experiment himself and see if he gets better results, in which case it would mean that my airtrack wasn't really up to the job of compressing the spring. Anyway, my point is, why would I hide information if it disagrees with mainstream theory or makes me look a fool? I don't really want to hide that information, because if it's me who's wrong, I want to know where I've gone wrong. If it's mainstream science that's wrong, well, we all want to know that, don't we, if that's wrong? But that's most unlikely, let's be honest. It's most unlikely that a guy with a piece of drain pipe, holes drilled in it, makeshift airtrack, it's most unlikely that he is showing mainstream science to be incorrect. But we have to always consider these possibilities. Is it possible that spring compression works different with kinetic energy? Because to give you a quick heads up, I did the same experiment and I've not recorded this version yet. But I did it with this little syringe with springs in, right? So I tested it with this, thinking maybe the spring I was using was too strong. But I got the same results with this. The 2 mass would compress it, say, that much, and the 1 mass would compress it just a little bit more, 25% more, which seems to be about the going rate on the airtrack. About 50% when I've done it with the other experiments, rolling coins and so on and so forth. But double the amount when I've used friction, when I've used the 1 mass to physically shove objects out of the way.
We don't need any evidence.
Which was Gary's original idea going back to last February. Once again, it's clear that the one that has half the mass but twice the velocity does the most work, moves the most metal. These are heavy. More force this time. Physically shove objects out of the way, which was Gary's original idea going back to last February, February 2021.
See how many anything they move. And you'll see that they produce exactly the same amount of molecular movement.
No, they don't!
See how many anything they move.
And you couldn't have been more wrong, could you? You couldn't have been more wrong if you'd tried.
They are both capable of producing the same amount of movement of molecules in the universe.
Then it's up to you to show us the same experiment, or a better version if you can muster up the courage to at least have a go. It's up to you to show us that's actually happening in real life, instead of expecting us to indulge in your fantasy.
They have in them the same amount of energy.
Well, my experiment shows that they appear not to. See how many anything you can move. I chose the 2 identical mobile phones, and you complained about that.
You know, crash them into marble. See how many marbles they move. See how many anything they move. See how many anything they move. See how many anything they move. And you'll see that they produce exactly the same amount of molecular movement.
No, they don't! First of all, he blames friction, and then he excuses friction when it suits him.
You know, crash them into marble. See how many marbles they move. See how many anything they move.
Do you actually understand what the words you say mean? So when you say anything, do you understand what anything means? To most rational people, that means I can choose anything. See how many loaves it moves, see how many fish it moves, see how many apples it moves, see how many elephants it moves, see how many Garys it moves, see how many staples it moves, see how many mobile phones it moves. And when I choose any of these objects, you say, oh, who said that you could use them to test energy with? You did. You did. You did. Prick of the year did. Gary.
See how many anything they move.
Well, if you don't like me moving anything as a means of testing the extra kinetic energy, don't say, see how much anything they can move. And so then I thought, well, maybe the spring isn't linear. And so I tested it by putting pennies on it and counting how far it went down as I added pennies to it. And it is linear. It went down that much for 1 penny, another for another penny. You can't see the marks, mate. It's linear. It works like a normal scale, like you weigh fish, you know, an angler's scale, a fisherman's scale, or that kind of thing. It's a spring scale. It works perfectly linearly. So anyway, I don't know the answer. I'm just presenting that information here. Partly supports Gary because it shows the difficulty of trying to make a one mass object actually show it has twice as much energy when it compresses a spring. It doesn't compress the spring twice as much, it doesn't compress it half as much, it compresses it about a quarter as much. Now it's still extra energy, isn't it? It's still doing more work, but it's just not as much as we would have expected if the kinetic energy formula is correct. But there's also information on this same airtrack experiment, which is one that was rescued off my DVD and my Sony Handycam crappy DVD recorder. When my hard drive crashed, I lost all the others, but there was one that was still on the DVD, and this is it. So I've edited out some crap that was on it. You're welcome to see it if you want to see it, but I promise you it's crap. It's not showing you anything of any use. It's not embarrassing to me. It's not embarrassing to science. It's not embarrassing to Gary. It's just useless crap that I've cut out. There's about 5 or 10 minutes where I was experimenting with a method of measuring how far the glider crashed into the spring, how much it compressed it, by putting what I thought was a thin strip of clay on, see how much it deformed the clay. It took me 10 minutes to realise this clay is too thick. I need to make it even smaller. And so in the end, what worked was me just getting a tiny, tiny piece of clay, sticking that on, and then it physically moves the whole piece, slides it along the air track, and gives you a good, accurate record of how far it compressed the spring. So this video ought to be quite interesting. Now, just one more point. Because it's an air track and it's run with an ordinary vacuum cleaner, it's very, very, very noisy. So what I've done is I've applied a noise gate and a filter to try and chop out or diminish the sound of the vacuum cleaner in the background. I've tried to use some AI software to try and remove the sound of the vacuum cleaner, and it hasn't totally worked because my voice compared to the sound of the vacuum cleaner dominates. So it's been quite tricky to try and remove the sound of the vacuum cleaner. Oops, sorry, I forgot there's actually I've got a piano in front of me, and yeah, I've tried to remove the sound of the vacuum cleaner, but it hasn't worked out too well. It sounds a bit like Jacques Cousteau with a snorkel. So you can just about hear what I'm saying on the important parts, but I'm just saying, if you hear weird noises, weird artifacts in the sound, that's why. It's just me trying to make it so it's less painful to your ears, because there's nothing worse than me starting for vacuum cleaner and then going in your ears while I'm trying to talk to you. So I've tried to save you that pain. Okay. Now, in fairness, the video also shows something that Gary is categorically wrong about. Something that John Walker asked me to do or redo. As luck would have it, I've still got that recording. He suggested yesterday that why don't I get the spring release device, which is just a solder sucker modified, taking out the piston and all that, so the spring is free to go without being restricted by the airflow. Why don't I take that device and use it on the air track to propel the 1 mass and a 2 mass object and compare speeds? Now, I'd already done that on this video. So what it shows is, I'd been running the experiment using this 2-mass to compress the spring, and it had flags here and here, whatever distance that is, I can't remember, going through the light gate, and that took 576 2-mass glider to 576 milliseconds, okay, to go through the light gate. So then, according to Gary's theory, when I swapped over to the 1-mass for 74 grams, half the mass, without altering the launcher at all, the 1-mass should have gone automatically, without doing anything different to it, should have gone 288 milliseconds, the same distance between the flags. So I did that, and it didn't do that. It went through at Gary's claim. Okay, but reality was, it went through at about, forget now, about 500 or so milliseconds. Can't actually remember. It was in that ballpark anyway, okay? And to make it go through at 288 milliseconds, I had to tighten up the adjuster screw, make the spring tighter in the solder sucker spring launcher. I had to tighten the spring up only a little bit, you know, in relative terms, about 3 threads worth of turn. You'll see me doing it on this experiment coming up. I'm going to turn it just 2 or 3 threads worth to try and gauge it until we get, I finally achieved 200, I actually achieved 287 if I remember right. But it took extra tightening up of the spring to make that happen, and you will see this happening in real time. So Gary's wrong when he claims that a 1-mass will automatically go at twice the speed. It didn't. It would be something around the 1.4. It'll have been 1.4 times that, won't it? Minus any losses or errors on my part. Well, it's just come back to me now. Yeah, it went at, sorry, I remember, the figures will come back to me. It actually went at, I remember now, yeah, it went 450 the first time, and the second time I did it, it went at 502. The 450 is obviously the correct one, isn't it? The second one, I must have not released it quite. Occasionally you get a dud release, you know, something goes a bit wrong, you didn't let go of it on time, or maybe it just scraped the track as it went along, I don't know. But obviously we go off the fastest time we can achieve, because a fluke is more likely to slow it down, isn't it, really? We're not likely to do something to accidentally give it extra energy. Okay, I'll shut up now, and hopefully that's enough for now. Well, the camera hasn't crashed this time, that's a miracle, isn't it? Just a note that I've increased the mass of the 2-mass one by adding these extra pieces on the end, because I wanted them to make better contact with this larger spring here. To enable it to make better contact with this larger spring here that I'm going to test with now. So I've added that extra piece on the end, and another piece exactly the same on the other end, to balance it up a little bit. And so I've added another 4 grams to the 1-mass one as well, so that they're still exactly at a 50-50 ratio. So it's still exactly half the mass of the other one. Okay, let's give this a go. If I put a little bit standing up there, so then we're actually hoping to see it knock it or bend it, or slide it along. I'll put it there just behind that line and see if it slides it along or knocks it off. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I think this is a better method of recording, isn't it? So it's moved it along to, so that's the edge. What's there? That's it, wasn't it? Okay. Yeah, so I'll do the same next time. Okay. So that's that's how much it's actually compressed it. It's compressed it that much. Like that. Yeah, so the task now is to see if the 1-mass at twice the velocity does it any greater. But before I do that, before I move on, just let's verify the velocity of these runs that I've just been doing. Can I just measure that? If I put a line across there. Sorry if I'm in the way of the camera, but I'm trying to put a line across there. Is that reasonably accurate? Yeah, I think that looks reasonably accurate. Just on the side of caution. So if that's in line with the edge of the spring, yes, before it's compressed. So that distance from there to there, that is, it's 12 millimeters. Yeah, 12 millimeters. Yeah. So that's 12 millimeters there, okay. 12 millimeters compression with the 2-mass object going half the speed, half the velocity. Okay, so I want to verify the velocity of those tests I've just done, because I altered the mass a little bit, didn't I? Only by 8 grams on that one, but still. Alright, Gregory. Stop. Could be much more accurate, really, when you think about it. 574, and we were looking for 576. So, just so you can see, 574. So the velocity was still the same. Now I have to check the 1 mass and get this to go at twice that velocity. So instead of 576 that we were looking for before, we're now looking for 288. We're now looking for 288. Now Gary thinks that if I simply put this in front of the same spring, the same launch force, it will automatically go twice the speed, and it won't. I have to give it a little bit of extra force to make it go twice the speed. That's just the facts of life, I'm afraid. This is what experiment and mathematics indicates to us. This is what experiment proves to us. I don't know why he would deny experiments. Just let me show you. Well, first of all, I'll try it without increasing the force. So I'll use the same force as before, see what speed it actually does go at. Vacuum cleaner going again. So I zero the counter. That went to 450, just in case Gary doesn't trust me. 450. Try again. Still not increased the force on that yet. Oh. Sorry, I didn't zero it. Zero the counter. Zero the counter again. Zero the counter. There we go. Go number 2. 502. So I have to turn this dial, compress the spring a little bit more. I've got my mark in here so I can remember where it was. So I have to do this, tighten the spring up a little bit. Well, it should be fully really, because that's how it was originally. So tighten that up, and with a bit of luck that should give us the 288 that we're looking for. 288 that we're looking for. Give it a go. Zero the counter. Not far off. 307. Let me zoom in for you. 307. That's very close. Another go. Zero the counter. Zero the counter. Grab. Would you believe it? 307 again. 307. Okay, well, I don't know if I can really tighten this up anymore, because it's not much anyway. I'll give it, try it, okay. Give it a shot. Okay, give that a go. If that doesn't improve it, I can't really do much about it. Zero the counter. Oi!
That's more like it, a bit more like it. 275. It's 275, and we're looking for 288 really, so 288 that we're looking for. I'll back it up a little bit, that's just a little bit too strong now. Let me just turn the dial back a little, tiny bit. Okay, give that a go. Again on the counter. That's it. 287. Okay, 287. Okay. 287. 288 that we're looking for. Right. I think that'll do me.
Okay, let's give it another go then with the one mass object. So let's now measure how much the one mass object compresses a spring. I'll put my little bit of clay there. Are we ready? Vacuum cleaner on.
Zero the counter. Oh man, it doesn't matter now, we're not counting anymore. We've already done that bit. Go number 1. Good. Move it a bit further along. Go number 2. Go number 2. Go number 3. Go number 4. That doesn't seem to touch it anymore, does it? Go number 5. Okay, that'll do.
At a glance, it doesn't look like it's moved it much more than before, if any at all. So, there's only one way of finding out. Measure. So let's put a little mark there. It's just... So, to be honest, that looks the same. Oh, I tell a lie. That's almost 15. It's at least 14. It's like 14 and a half. So it is a little bit more compressed. 14.5, I mean. Yeah. So we have a little bit more compression there, don't we, on this big spring. The one I've not done though, I forgot I was supposed to be doing the other spring, wasn't it? This, that one. I forgot I was also supposed to be checking how much more that one compressed. Okay, should we try that one as well? So... Okay. Stupid camera. The light shine on it, doesn't it? Ah, that's it. Sorry, I've knocked that. It wasn't there. That. Yeah, it was there, not where I've just knocked it accidentally. Yeah, so it's 14.5, and previously it was 12 millimeters. And in each case, I'm measuring it just as it's exited the light gate, so we have the accurate timing, so it's not had time to diminish. Okay, let's check the small spring now. Okay.